Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday. This is for sure going to be the last video I ever make on this account. And I'm not speaking to members of the public. I'm speaking directly to my former brothers and sisters in blue who have worked with me during my time as an officer with the Canada Border Services Agency. I'm here to ask a favor from you. If you can find it in your heart to do so, please send a testimony of what it was like to work with me. An honest testimony. To Todd, I'm going to try and pronounce his last name, Macheka? Mataheka? I'll work on it, but he's the Eastern Ontario branch president. And he is being tasked with handling my case against the employer. And now my case against the employer, it's not for me. This is a precedent-setting case for those of you who are still wearing the uniform, still punching in and out, and still suffering at the hands of what can only be described as an abusive employer. Am I not speaking truth? Or am I speaking a lie? And the reason being is there was quite the transformation, wasn't there? From my time in Fort Erie, and my time at headquarters, and my time at Lansdowne, to what you guys observed on social media all last year. You quite literally watched me lose every aspect of my mind. While this employer boasts about mental health awareness and all the resources that they have available to you, and I promise you, there are none. None that truly help.
Nope.
You can tell a tree by the fruit it produces. So that's what I'm asking for. If I was an awful officer, hey, say so. Email it to Todd. If I was perhaps hardworking, diligent, in good spirits, always on time, whatever you saw, I'm asking that you just send a brief, it doesn't have to be long, a brief testimony to Todd. And I'm not going to post his email address because I do not want him getting spammed by members of the public. It's quite an atrocious case, and my intention is to make it very public for the benefit of everyone who's still on the job, really, truly. In addition to that, I just received disclosure for my criminal charges. And it would disgust you to know the lengths that this agency went. During that time where I was very clearly in a state of manic psychosis, very unwell, to have me put away for 10 years.
Wow.
This is what they want.
Wow.
So,
That's
I harbor
insane.
no ill will against anyone in upper management. And in fact, I've undergone such a transformation that I find myself praying for them. Genuinely.
Don't pray for them. They need sage up their
So
ass.
that's what I came on here to say.
Exorcism.
To ask a brief favor from some of you, and I hope you find it in your heart to do so, because this will go a long way. It will go a long way in helping those of you who are suffering on the job right now. Alright guys, peace and blessings. I invite you to join me on my spiritual journey as I walk with Christ. Over at...
Okay, so I'm gonna explain to you who he is. His name is Officer Patrick McNulty. He is a former CBSA officer, so he was like a former guard for like any border crossing. And excuse me, I can't remember actually how I came across him, but I seen his videos because what was happening is I believe he ended up being on sick leave, but prior to that, he had issues with I don't know if it was the mask mandates or just everybody has their own view about COVID and all that stuff, right? And I mean, we're like now almost 3 years into this. They are talking about bringing the mask mandates back. It's absolute insanity. It's all about control. They don't want to let it go. Canada is in a really, I don't know, I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. And it's actually very concerning because, like, there's so much history in the making that's going on right now, like with the commission and all these bills they're trying to pass to censor us and just so many things. And so anyways, I came across this video of his that I just showed you guys. And what happened was he ended up being off of work for medical reasons. He had mental health issues. Now, I don't know his full story. I would have to go back and watch all of his videos, which I have done because he's actually quite a very interesting person. And he's very like passionate when he talks because it's something that he feels strongly about. So obviously that's the type of personality I'm drawn to, right? And so anyways, he was off on sick leave, and how this even happened, I don't know. Oh, actually I do know. I'm sorry. He made a video with him in his uniform. His CBSA, let me see if I can find it actually. Let me see if he still has it up. He may not have it up because they've really gone after him in a very hard way. Wait, let's see. No, that was canceled. Okay, hang on. It's coming up. Hang on. Let's see here. Oh, this is it. Hang on.
I just wanted to update you guys on some of the information that I learned over this weekend, and I will start with some good news, okay?
All right.
Several Canadians have made it home without having to use the ArriveCan application in order to board a flight in a foreign country, and it seems that there's one airline in particular that has created some sort of a waiver for you to sign in order for you to board their plane, and that airline is Air Transit. Now, I've heard of several accounts from several people successfully boarding this airline, and different locations as well. One was a woman in...
Okay, one second.
Good morning, happy Monday.
You guys,
there's one locations as well. I just wanted to update you guys on some of the information in London, and hey, good morning. Hey, good morning, happy Monday.
Okay, never mind. I'll wait till the end.
I just wanted to update you guys on some of the information that I learned over this weekend. And I will start with some good news, okay? His camera, so it's a very interesting video of this airline and different locations as well. One was a woman in London, and I just posted a video by a guy named Joe, where he just returned home from Florida, and he also used Air Transit as well. And he actually reads part of the form into his camera, so it's a very interesting video to watch. And what's very important about this, refusing the ArriveCan application before you get on the flight, is if you don't provide your information, there's no way for them to issue you one of those tickets. Okay, so then when you arrive in Canada and you stand your ground and you refuse to speak to public health, once again, they cannot coerce you, they cannot detain you, they cannot do anything to force you to speak with public health. Any interaction with them is strictly voluntary. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's voluntary, okay? If you have handed your passport to public health, it's voluntary. So if you're in a situation where the CBSA officer is handing your passport to public health after the customs process is done, I have an avenue for you to pursue. It's called filing a complaint, and it's very effective. So I'm looking at the complaint form right now. I've posted the link to access this direct page in my bio, and I'm going to share it in my stories. But it's a very simple form, okay? It starts with feedback type. Gives you 3 options: compliment, comment, or a complaint. In this case, we're going for complaints. It'll ask for your first name, last name, preferred language of communication, and your contact information, email address and phone number. It then gives you an opportunity to write your story. What happened to you at the border? So everyone who's taken the time to write me, this is what you need to be doing. Writing them, and here's why. An officer gets to work and immediately has to sit down. The superintendent has to schedule time for them to respond to your complaint. They have to sit down and they have to justify everything they did in writing.
Hot damn.
They have to state which act they were acting under, what authorities they had to do whatever they did to you, okay? It's a time-consuming process, and then you will receive a copy of their statement.
Sweet.
Perfect. This is evidence for you to bring to court.
Yep.
For one, I can guarantee that most of these officers are going to have no idea what to write. Most likely, they're going to fall under an act of Parliament called the Contraventions Act, and it's about as weak as they come. So for those of you who are terrified to defend yourself in court, rest assured, don't be. There's a good chance a judge is going to read one of these nonsensical statements and just withdraw the case entirely. Entirely drop it, okay? I have yet to hear of someone being found guilty without just voluntarily checking off at that form. Yeah, early resolution and paying. So, wonderful avenue for you.
I've heard different lately, more coming
With
out
regards to the form for air transit, I don't know where to find it. I haven't been able to find it. So far, the closest I've come is that video that Joe posted where he read the top page of the form. So as soon as you sign that form, the airline will allow you to board, which makes sense. This is what I've been saying from day one. The airlines are scared of repercussion from us.
Yeah.
Okay? Yeah. But there will be no repercussion from us because we cannot deny a Canadian citizen, a permanent resident, a person registered under the Indian Act, a foreign worker under a lawful foreign work permit, study permit, whatever. We cannot refuse you entry for not complying with this nonsense. This is not a law. This is not an act. This is a mandate. There is so much red tape. It is unbelievable, okay? So, thank you for everyone who has stood their ground, who has taken their time to write me their experience. And just to add to what I just said, you know, there's a lot of concern about, well, what information is on my passport? Your home address is not on your passport. Where you are planning to self-isolate is not on your passport, and your telephone number is not linked to your passport either. So, if you stood your ground when boarding a flight, and you stood your ground at the airport and you refused to speak with public health, which, yes, you can do. They cannot handcuff you. They cannot detain you. There will be no arresting you for failing to speak with public health. You can ignore them and treat them like they're invisible. If you've done that, and then you receive a knock on your door, whether it's from the RCMP, a local police unit, or a local health unit in some cases, file this complaint. Use this form, okay? Submit your complaint, because where was the authority to disclose your information? Where was the authority to just share this information? They would have had to contact a police service, use their records to find your home address linked to your driver's license, and it's very, very sneaky, okay? Very, very sneaky, and we need to get these people putting it in writing that that's what they did.
Wow.
Because that's what they're doing. Any quick questions before I hop off? I've got to meet with a gentleman who runs the YouTube channel War Campaign.
Good dude, man.
So I want to save my voice and my rants for that. In Italy, coming back to Canada. Wonderful. Best of luck. What a stressful experience for no reason.
No shit.
Absolutely outrageous. 3 big, tough Peel Region cops threatened to arrest my 2 teenagers for non-compliance. Tough guys. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Tough guys. Yeah, tough guys who received very good training once upon a time, and I guarantee they didn't retain their skills, and they're absolutely useless slugs, which is why they're standing around at the airport threatening your teenagers.
No shit.
Outrageous, guys. It's very intimidating. It's not cool what they're doing, but as you can see over and over and over again, and I'm going to continue to share these stories as often as I get them, you can say, no, excuse me, and in the last video that I just shared, it's about 9 minutes long. So if you're just interested in what happened in Canada, fast forward to about halfway through, you'll see there's a security guard. A security guard. As in he paid $80 for a license. He makes $17 an hour, hired by a private company, not a government agent. And he's begging. Oh, please, 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 if you don't talk to public health, it's on me, I get in trouble, please. And Joe just says, no, sorry, bye. And off they go. Off they go. They picked up their bags. And they waved bye to the CBSA officer on their way out. Done. Easy. So I understand if you're intimidated. I understand if you're scared. How outrageous. If you're intimidated and you're scared, file a complaint. File a complaint. At the very least, this is going to cause a lot of work for officers who are choosing to enforce tyrannical nonsense. Yep. And you know what? At the end of the day, that could be enough to deter them. I'm dead serious. That could be enough. Having to do work, having to sit down after the fact, look through their notebook, which I guarantee they didn't take any notes,
Right.
and they're going to have to bumble their way out of a lawsuit. All right? God bless everyone. Take care. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Hey,
Now,
good morning. Happy Monday. I just wanted to update you guys on some of the information that
okay, hang on. So I'm going to give you guys an update about this. Okay, so I first seen his video when he was in his, this was not the one I thought it was, I apologize. But he was in a border, this outfit right here, this is his work uniform. Okay, and he was telling people about when, because they really fucked things up here in Canada for like travelers, people like especially international flights, things like that. They installed this ArriveCan app. They spent, get this, you guys, $55 million on an app that War Campaign, the guy that he just mentioned, my homie on fucking YouTube, he's awesome. His son could make this in a weekend, he said. And there's actually an investigation coming up as to what happened with all that money. Because, like, that's a whole different subject altogether. So anyways, this guy that you see on your screen right now, his name is Officer Patrick McNulty, and he was actually took a stand. And God love him. And you know what? The world needs more people like this. And so I came across this video one day because people were scared, and it seems like they were attacking the women more, really, or anybody that they thought that they could easily manipulate. And they were detaining people, unlawfully detaining people. They were giving your passport over to this PHAC, the public health, whatever it stands for, whatever the acronym stands for, but they're a public health agent, who are now not even employed at this moment in time. And they're not allowed to do that. The only person that is ever allowed to have your possession of your passport is yourself, or when you're going to, like, obviously on a flight, you have to show them your passport. But then they are to hand it back to you because that is your possession. That is your property. It's supposed to be on your person. That is your identity. Like, when you're traveling, that's your Bible. Like, I mean, without it, you don't go anywhere, right? Like, you need to prove who you are. And so what they were doing is people were coming back and, like, listen to how next level this actually got, you guys. So people were coming back. Some people were getting like $7,000-8,000 fines each person. So a family of 4 was walking out of the airport with like $32,000 in fines. They are now going through the courts. Some are getting dropped, some are not. Some are getting reduced, some are not. I think it depends on the province, the situation, things like that. I don't really know. Like, it's too new. We don't have enough data to kind of figure out, you know, what the winning method is. But this guy on your screen right now was telling people, like, you don't have to fucking do this. This is bullshit. I'm a border officer. I don't have the right to do this. This is what you do. And obviously his work got mad at him, right? Like they do when... I've said this before. It's like a backwards world, you know? Like, they don't congratulate the people for, you know, standing up for other human beings or humanity or being honest and transparent and having integrity and honesty. They come down hard on you, like so hard on you that they want to, it seems like 10 years is the number they just want to give all of these people. And it's absolutely insanity. So he went on, originally, the first video of his that I seen, I don't know where it started for him, but he was in his I want to say costume, but it's not a costume, it's a uniform, sorry. And he was telling people, like, you don't have to do this. This is not legal. These people are not, you know, like a legal official. They are a public health officer, blah, blah, blah. And for some reason, like, they just did not want to let this go, okay? Like, this ArriveCan app, I think, just stopped, I want to say, in either September or October. Like, it hasn't been gone for long, put it that way. And it looks like it's probably going to come back. And I don't want to be that person, but, so right now, because of the convoy that we had in January and February of this year in Ottawa, there is a commission, okay? I've talked about this a lot. I've taken a break from it because I found that I was just so beyond stressed out. Like it was affecting me. Like, it was affecting, like, I couldn't sleep. I was miserable. Like, I was so stressed out because it was like, you know, they're just showing everyone their cards now, and like they didn't even have come close to meeting the threshold of invoking that Emergencies Act. And anybody that was on the fence prior to this commission will definitely not be on the fence anymore. That's just put it that way. And so, like, all of us Canadians, the world is watching this. Like, we have never seen anything like this in our lifetime, okay? But why it isn't legal proceedings, I don't fucking know. I've always said before that, these people, they have invisibility shields and they get away with everything. And it seems like they do. And, a lot has been said. There's a lot of things in the works. And this commission is about to wrap up in a couple days. And I believe our Prime Minister is speaking tomorrow, and his stupid puppet girl, Deputy Prime Minister Krista Freeland, she's going to speak too. Like, both of these guys are fucking hooked on phonics, okay? Like, Justin Trudeau is a good speaker when he's got a speech prepared. But if you have ever seen him try and talk just on the fly, he's a stuttering John from Howard Stern. I'm not kidding you. Like, he's like, like, he cannot. And he's an echo chamber. He just repeats the same babble. He'll time the clock out. But, so, even though I'm back to work, I had surgery and then I was off, I recovered, and then I went back to work, 3 weeks ago. And it was actually just at the perfect time too. Because like I said, watching this commission was making me so fucking angry because they're preaching to the choir. You know what I mean? I already knew this shit, when it happened. I was there. I wasn't watching it on the news. I wasn't watching it on YouTube. I was the one filming it on YouTube, even though they took that channel down, but I still have the videos. But, I was there and I got to experience that. And it was the best experience that I've ever had in my entire life as a Canadian. I have never felt so much pride. I've always admired Americans for their patriotism. I've always admired that because that's something that seemed to lack in Canada. You guys have, you take your elections seriously, you take your voting seriously, you take your constitution seriously, you just, and it's something that I used to think Canada also did. But over the course of the last couple of years, I have realized that, no, they just keep taking our rights away and they don't care. So while this big commission is going on and, everyone's focus is there, they're trying to pass a bill called C-11, which is a direct hit on our freedom of speech. They want to control what we see. They want to control what we stream. They want to control everything. They just want to control all of us. They just want to eliminate the human race as far as I'm concerned and just want a bunch of robots is what I feel like. Because, you can't be original. You can't be independent. You can't be an individual. You can't think freely. You can't speak freely. It's just, if you do, you are an absolute criminal. You are worse than a murderer, or a bank robber, or a drug dealer. You are worse than any of those people because, you just aren't going along with the program. And, this 2030 reset, it's just not going to happen. And the reason why they're trying to nail Canada down is because we're the pilot project for this 2030 bullshit. And we knew that. That's why we're standing up. And we also know that this time around, when the next one happens, I don't want to say it out loud, but I'll say this. There is going to become a time very soon that good people are going to be forced into a situation, if they already haven't been, backed into a corner so much that you may have to do some unfriendly things to get out of the situation that you didn't choose for yourself, but was inflicted upon you, and you were verbally abused by your leaders. Keep in mind that this trickled from the top down. So what he has set the example of, the bar was set by the top leaders, okay? And it was okay to call us scum of the earth. And they talked about locking us up in jail in the beginning. I don't know. I can't believe, I can't believe it. Like, and we're sitting here again, and like they keep threatening to bring back masks and shit, and they know like we're not gonna have it. Like, it's not gonna happen. And like what's come out through this inquiry, this commission, is that they compared it to January 6th before anybody even got to Ottawa. They wanted tanks. They wanted the military in there. They were joking about it. The politicians were texting each other back and forth, joking about it. Just like the cops were that ran over the lady with the horse in the wheelchair. Yeah, those messages got leaked too. All of these people that I'm talking about were so proud of their actions. Like, I honestly can't even believe the example that is being set by people that are in powers of position. Position of power, I mean. And because they have a fancy title and make six figures, they are just exempt from any consequence. You know, the man who wrote our Constitution, the last living member who helped write that Constitution that we have in Canada, the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, he sued the federal government, specifically on the travel mandate, actually. And you know what they did? This is how sneaky these people are. Okay, is just before he was supposed to go for his trial, they dropped the ArriveCan app that this man on your screen right now was talking about, and they ruled Brian Peckford's case as moot because it's no longer an issue. Okay, that doesn't even make sense to me, because put it this way, okay? Say, for example, someone murdered someone. You go out one night, something happens, and you kill someone, or someone dies, okay? And another person is held accountable criminally for that person's death. This is strictly hypothetical, okay? Now, that would be like the person who committed the crime, who is going through the courts, would go into court, and his lawyer would say, well, you know what? It's really kind of moot now because the guy's dead and he's been buried, and, you know, his family's already got closure. So we're not going to hold anybody accountable legally. We're just going to have these stupid commissions that was handpicked by the toddler in Parliament. And our premier, like the equivalent to like your state's governor, said, no, I'm not going. I'm not even going to testify. You know why? Because he doesn't want to tell the truth. Things are coming out about people that, like their corruption is showing. Their deception is showing. It's extremely, I love it. This is going to sound really bad, but this is how much damage they've caused to Canadians as a whole, is that I really thoroughly enjoy watching them squirm, watching them uncomfortable. Like the war campaign, I was talking about him earlier. He's been streaming the commission every day. And, like, his chats are fucking lit. Like, I mean, there's 2,000 people at least in the chats, or more. And, like, they're just lit. And everybody's like, we're all body language expert analysis. And, like, you know, like, we've noticed everything. Like, and this war campaign, his name's Ro. He is a computer programmer. And, like, he's super fast, right? Like, I'm, you know, type with one finger. Like, you know. Like, and I still use a phone. I found my laptop the other day, and I'm like, God, I don't really want to use this. But it works, ironically. It didn't work a year ago. So all you have to do, if you have a problem with your computer, is just unplug it, turn it off, and turn it on. Yeah, leave it off for a year. And then all of a sudden, the problem is fixed itself. I have no idea how. But it did. So, yeah. So there's that. And then I also want to talk about this guy, Rod Clark. And I follow him. He does Facebook Lives. And you know what? I fucking hate Facebook. I really do. I go on there because I do run a group about all of this stuff that I talk about on here. And, you know, there's a couple of people that live on the other side of the world that I keep in contact with and do, like, FaceTime with. And that's pretty much it, right? Like, I mean, they always put me in jail. And, you know, at one point they were going through my timeline and just keeping me in jail. Like, I would almost be getting out, be like 2 days left. And then it's like, no, we're just going to add more time on to you because, you know, and we don't even have this billing yet that they're sitting in Senate right now passing. So there's going to have to be a way around this. I don't know. Like, I know a lot of people that don't live in this country, and I might have to go on your stream with you or use a VPN, or I don't know how they're going to exactly do this, but I'm going to have to get creative in the ways that we communicate with people, because like they just do not want the truth out there. They do not want, even this commission, the first time that we've ever seen this, and it is on cable. You think it would be on like every damn channel, because this is like Canada's equivalent to like the OJ case. That's how like people are like hanging by this, because we've never seen this before. And it's also setting the bar for like the next time, which is going to be soon. And they fucking well know it. They know we're all sitting waiting, and we're going to see what the recommendations are. We're going to see, what happens, who loses their job, and everybody's throwing everybody under the bus. It's all fan-fucking-tastic. I love it. And we're going to see. And yeah, we're going to do it again. And this time it's going to be a lot fucking bigger. I've already told them that. I've been trying to get banned or blocked. I mean, not banned, blocked on Twitter by the toddler. His buddy Jagmeet Singh, who's a knob gobbler, and by Thug Ford, because all of those guys, they're all losers. None of them have a backbone. None of them, between all three of them, don't even have one set of balls, never mind anything else. They are not in touch with people. Like, everywhere that Justin Trudeau goes, he is getting screamed at, like, name calling, fuck you, get the fuck out of here, get out of Canada, like, we hate you. Like, he's always, no matter what, with his Secret Service men running to his car. Like, he refuses to stop and talk to anybody. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not what a leader is, okay? Like, I used to be management, not even of a fucking country, just of, like, a company. Sorry, I needed a drink. And, I've had some pretty big teams in my day. I think the highest number of team members that I managed at one time was 80 people, which had a lot of moving parts to that as well, in different areas, doing different tasks and that kind of stuff. But what they needed was very strong leadership. And when I came in there, they had a lot of inconsistencies, and they didn't have strong leadership. They had, I think it was like 3 or 4, maybe even almost 5 different supervisors who all had different methods, management styles, ways of doing things. And, when a team has been through that in a short period of time, like within maybe a year or two, that it affects people in their mindset, in their way that they work, in the way that they speak with others. Their morale is a big one. And I've always prided myself in being able to go into an environment like that with all the odds stacked against you and come out thriving. Like, I mean, I'll give you an example. That team that I had with 80 people, I was in Calgary at the time, and we had a fire at work. It's funny that they say, make sure you punch in and out, because if there's a fire, you've got to go in the building. Well, we did. And so it was a warehouse that I was working in, and it was a massive warehouse too. And so the way that their system was set up in Calgary was that everything that they did, instead of like putting it on a pallet or whatever, they would put it on like a conveyor belt, because the building was so fucking huge. It was like 1.5 million square feet. So like by the time you would even drive one pallet to shipping, it would take too long. Like, we would get nothing done. And so when we had the fire, like, we had to think on the fly, like, what do you do? I got 80 people here. I had like, certain, what do you call them? KPIs, key point indicators that I would have to meet every day as a manager, and also for my team. And, I would, like, those were your bread and butter, basically. And if you didn't meet those, not only did you make your team look bad, you made yourself look bad, and you lost out on money, right? Like, because it was a financial thing as well. But it was also like your personal goals for yourself. So like the day that we had the fire, like everybody's like, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, we're just going to put everything on the belt that we can until the belts are full. And then what we're going to do is just put everything on pallets, and we're going to stage it by over in this one area where you like where it was empty, like you weren't in rocking or nothing like that. Like there was nothing blocking you. And the way that their system was set up is that like things had to go out in order. So for example, if you had like we worked until what time? I think it was like 3 a.m. We would work till or close to 3 a.m. So when you would go in on one day, like the 22nd would have to be completed before the 23rd, right? And if you came in on the 23rd and there was still stuff remaining from the 22nd, then that affected something called your level of service, which also affected your KPI, your team. Like, I mean, and you had to answer for this. Like, I mean, these were your daily goals and this was what you do. So I was like, okay, well, that's what we're going to do. So, and then when we get the belts running, we'll just make sure that we have like everybody on the line throwing shit down. And even my managers didn't know what to do. But it was like, dude, I've been in every kind of fucking situation like that you couldn't even imagine. Like when I worked for one company here, they sent me around to do startups because that was like my specialty. So like, in a warehouse that was empty or in a new account that was taken over, and we would put in our warehouse management system. And like usually when you are taking over a company, it's usually a hostile takeover. And if you keep any of those people behind, they're very reluctant or unwilling to learn your ways. And it's like, dude, either you get on board or you're fucking getting out. Totally gone, like you're gone. So I would get on board if I were you. But, it was just one of those things. And that's the way I always think of a leader, is that you need to have strong problem solving skills. You need to have strong communication skills. You need to know how to win over a tough crowd. Dakota, what are you doing? You need, like, those are skills that are universal in life, in any job that you do. Like, I mean, and you don't even need to just be a leader to have those skills, but just as a person, like, I mean, even in a relationship or a friendship, like, I mean, if you have a problem with somebody, you need to be able to communicate with that person and articulate yourself in a way that isn't going to be offensive to the people. And you certainly aren't going to fucking go on TV and talk about, jailing these people and how long are we going to tolerate them and all this bullshit. Like, and keep in mind, like, this was said on TV repeatedly, right? So mass psychosis, keep repeating it a lot. People bought it. And like, families were divided. Like, it was a shit show for years. And like, I would say really, it was since the convoy that's what changed everything. Like, people that didn't believe in the beginning were at least having conversations. And quite honestly, I really don't care what people's views are. Like, I'm not here to try and convince anybody of anything. Do what you do. Like, I mean, if you are comfortable wearing a mask and want to get your shots, hey, by all means. Like, it's no sweat off my back. But don't make me do anything just because that's your personal choice. Like, my body, my choice, right? And I respectfully do the same to my friends, my family, whatever, right? Like, I mean, I'm not going to push my will on you, and I don't want you to push your will on me. So the reason why I showed this first video was because he went on Instagram, and let's actually find the first video if I can. I don't even know. Hang on. These are older. Wait. Hang on a second. Wait. I didn't see this one. Oh, yeah, I did. Or did I? Hang on.
It seems they're concerned about whether or not they'll be allowed to board their flight in a foreign country when returning home. So I decided to look into it this morning, and let's see what the Government of Canada says about this on their website. I'll post the link in my bio later on for those of you who wish to access this exact page.
Okay, and just quickly, since all of these videos and all of this information has come out, he's been fired. And he was fired while he was on sick leave. And I don't even know if that's a legal thing to do, but he's been going through a lot. And now they're trying to put him in jail for 10 years. Like, I don't even know what his charges are.
If you do not submit your information through ArriveCan, and once again, this is from canada.gc.ca, the Canadian government's website. So first, we'll talk about foreign nationals, okay? If you don't submit your information through ArriveCan and you are a foreign national traveling for discretionary purposes, Discretionary meaning
Leisure.
tourism, leisure, okay, not for an essential work permit or some other essential cross-border travel, okay? We're talking about discretionary. You just want to check out Ottawa for whatever reason, okay?
No, nobody does.
You may be denied. So it says here on the website, you may be denied boarding if arriving by air or cruise ship, or entry into Canada if crossing at a land, rail, or marine border crossing, and this doesn't surprise me one bit, okay? So they're going to be making it very hard for foreign nationals to enter this country without first downloading the ArriveCan application and then submitting your medical status regarding the injection.
Well, that's funny because I'll tell you after this. Hang on.
Next order of business, Canadian citizens and permanent residents, including persons registered under the Indian Act and, check this out, foreign nationals eligible to enter Canada under another entry exemption, such as a foreign work permit, a study permit, or compassionate grounds. Say the death of a loved one or a loved one is soon to be dying, so on and so forth. You will not be denied boarding or entry, but, and there's a but,
You can't get in the hospital.
you won't be eligible for the fully vaccinated traveler exemption and may be required to quarantine and complete an arrival test and a day 8 test.
Yep.
You may face additional delays at the border for public health questioning, and you may be subject to fines or enforcement action. Now, I want to emphasize the word may. May. Now, why am I emphasizing this word? Typically, when an officer has to, as in, I don't have a choice here, the law is the law, the wording is shall. Okay? So it should say, you shall be subject to fines or enforcement action. The employer is doing a very clever job here of ensuring that the onus is on the officer to use their own discretion when issuing their fines or enforcement action. And rest assured, in a few years' time, when this all comes full circle, those officers will be held personally liable and responsible, which is very unfortunate for those of you who genuinely believe you're just doing your job. Okay? You're not doing your job by just blindly following orders. You're not. You need to read into all of this yourself. The onus is on you, the officer, not members of the public.
And this goes for all you dirty cops out there, too, that were just following orders. Dinks.
I'm going to reread that. Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and persons registered under the Indian Act and foreign nationals eligible to enter Canada under another entry exemption. Okay? You will not be denied boarding or entry. Clear as day. You will not be denied boarding or entry. Now, why are we hearing tales of people being denied boarding in a foreign country?
And seeing videos of it.
That's the airline. Okay? The airline is confused. They are, out of an overabundance of caution, right? And just imagine, they're flying all over the world.
Yeah.
Every country has made up their own nonsense.
Yep.
And most countries have dropped many of these restrictions, or in Canada's case, we're just amending these restrictions and we're tightening them up, okay?
Yeah.
So Canada clearly has sent the message out that everyone requires this app. The onus, unfortunately, is now on us to print off this piece of paper. Highlight the parts that say Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and persons registered under the Indian Act and foreign nationals eligible to enter Canada under another entry exemption. So let's say you already have your work permit, your study permit, or whatever it is, okay? You most certainly have the right to stand your ground at the airport and say no.
Yeah, but you wouldn't get to work or the hospital.
That's risky, and I understand why people don't feel confident doing that. You know, I'm hearing from several people that they went to the highest level of supervisor and they were still told no.
Yeah,
no, download the app or
dinks,
they print off a paper version of it and you fill it out on the spot just to appease the person who's stopping you from getting on the airline and coming home. If this has happened to you, I highly encourage you to gather this information yourself. I'm going to do my best to make it readily available for you, but start filing your own complaints with these airlines. You paid money, very good money,
Yep.
And how outrageous is this, right? To have to go through this hassle. So I do just want to clarify that. It is on the Government of Canada website that under no circumstances are you required to have this application in order to board. The wording is simply very confusing. I had to scroll very far down this page just to find it clear as day that Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and our natives do not need this application in order to board an airplane, because at the top, all it says is you must. Right? You must use ArriveCAN to provide mandatory travel and public health information before and after your entry into Canada. False. How do I know it's false? It says it's false halfway down the page.
That's insanity.
So, mass confusion generally equals mass compliance.
Yep.
Because this is very confusing, and who wants to be dealing with this nonsense when you're on a much-deserved holiday?
Yeah.
Right?
Tight flight connections.
Next order of business is whether or not an officer at the border has the right to withhold your passport
They were.
and hand it to public health and to tell you to go and speak with them. So I'll address that right now.
They were doing that, totally.
You know, there's an entire act related to passports on the Justice website. It's laws.justice.gc.ca.
Dakota.
And I can tell you from firsthand experience that 99% of Border Services officers have never once even questioned,
Good boy, come on.
the laws
sorry,
related
we
to a
didn't-
passport.
Get in
We
there.
heavily rely on the blind compliance of Canadians. That's how most of our job gets done.
Wow.
However, I'm here to inform you that yes, while it is true your passport does remain the exclusive property of the Government of Canada, they're not lying when they say it's government property, and you would have agreed to those terms and conditions when you applied for your passport and paid a hefty sum of money to get it.
Yeah.
While it is the property of the Government of Canada, it is your passport
With your name.
for you to present in order to identify yourself.
Right.
And it can only be used by the holder of the passport in order to identify yourself. Now you might be thinking, well, there got to be some exceptions, right? You know, I have a 2-year-old child, and that 2-year-old child has a passport,
Right.
and I'm the parent. I'm going to show the passport on behalf of my 2-year-old. You're absolutely correct. That is a dependent, okay?
Right.
That 2-year-old has no idea what's happening. Therefore, you're able to present the passport on behalf of your dependent.
Right.
Because they're in your,
Care.
what's that word, guys?
Care. And control.
Custody.
Custody. Okay. Fine.
They're in your care and control. They're in your custody. So the moment that a Border Services officer decides they're going to step outside of the regular customs exam, the regular customs process, the moment they decide they're going to step outside of that, withhold your passport from you, and then deliver it to another government department and another person representing that government department, guess what, guys? They've just referred you, the person, directly to speak with that public health agent,
Yep.
or whatever they call themselves. Okay? It's an unlawful referral. That's bad practice. So officers, if you're doing this in the field, and I know you are, that's a bad practice. That can get you in a lot of trouble. Don't ever do that. Hand the passport back to the rightful holder of the passport. And if you're so personally inclined to violate their rights and attempt to instruct them to go speak to public health against their will, that's on you. And guys, if this happens to you, I know it's happened to many in the past, do your best to write a complaint. The instructions are on the Government of Canada website or the CBSA website. If this happens to you, start filming.
Fucking A.
Start filming right away. Bad practice, not allowed. So, I hope that helps. That seems to be two of the glaring questions that have yet to be answered. What to do when trying to board an aircraft and you don't have the application. And what to do when your passport is withheld and then handed to public health, which then forces you to perhaps sit around for an hour. I'm hearing stories of people telling me they were detained for an hour without having been read their rights, without having been put in contact with a lawyer. And this is a very big deal.
Yes, it is.
A very big deal, okay? So, God bless everyone. I hope this helps. And, I always like to try and check and see if there are any pressing questions here before I go. So I'll have a quick scroll.
The world needs more people like him, okay? He's got
Someone here
heart.
says thank you for actually doing your job.
Yes. Thank you for giving a shit.
And that means a lot to me.
Aw.
You're welcome, sir.
Oh. I've never had a nice CBSA officer ever, not once.
Okay, I'm not really seeing any questions, so I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And I won't be very active over the weekend. I'll have my children with me, so...
Okay, so since now I'm starting to understand more as I rewatch these videos why they're not liking him so much. Because, like I said before, they don't like when you speak the truth. They don't like it when you make them look bad. They only like to point out our flaws, but don't you dare do it back to them. Especially as an employer who has an obligation to its employees to be fair, to do things in a legal and lawful manner, because we do have employment rights. Even though, like, most of the lawyers in Canada, for whatever reason, didn't want to, in the beginning, initially, didn't want to fight the human rights thing. And as more time goes on, and things are starting to roll through the courts now, we have something called a Bill of Rights, and we have the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, the Bill of Rights was around first. It's a little bit different than the human rights. And over the last couple of years, I've heard this big argument about, should we be using the Bill of Rights or should we be using the Charter? Well, a lot of people are saying that the Charter was never fully ratified. And I'm not sure why that is. And I would have to do a deep dive on it one day. And I started to one day, but I got really distracted with other things because it's just like on the bottom of the list right now in terms of like, what's important. But I'm kind of curious to know what the major differences are between the Bill of Rights. I think what it is the Bill of Rights doesn't look at us as a person. It's something to do with the Commonwealth countries. And, so with the government of Canada, we are a registered company, believe it or not. We're not even a friggin' human, okay? No wonder why they don't treat us like one. But on the back of our birth certificate, there is a number that is registered with the government. And then we are assigned, a social insurance number, they call it here. So your social security cards. And that's how they track you is... your earnings go on that, your taxes, all this bullshit, right? And so to the government, we are only the back of our birth certificates. We are our social insurance number. And the only other number that I can think of as really valid that identifies you uniquely is our driver's license number if you have a driver's license. If you don't have a driver's license, I think they have something called an age of majority. So it would be your photo ID so you could get into bars and stuff. But we didn't need that when I was a kid because, I can't remember. Well, shit, I was getting bars when I was like 16 anyways. And the guys were older than me that were serving me, but it was like, yeah, whatever. But yeah, so, sorry, I'm all over the place. I'm just thinking as I go, but, there's a couple other things. I started to talk about this earlier and then I got distracted, I think, with Patrick's story because he's pleading for help. You can see that he needs help. And what they have been doing here in Canada, and I don't know why, and I don't know if it's a common practice in the US or not. I know with some cases, perhaps. But it seems like especially these cases of interest that have a lot of support, have a lot of publicity, have a lot of strong opinions, they put publication bans on it. So they're not allowed to talk about their case. He had a really big interview with our biggest it's our biggest news outlet. It's called Rebel News, and it's not mainstream media. And they are like the closest thing to the truth that you would get, except one guy's compromised in my opinion, but that's just my opinion, and maybe others like him, I don't know. But there's one guy on there, the guy with the fake boobs. If you remember that video I posted, the teacher with the fake boobs, David Menzies, he's from Rebel News. I love that guy. He's hilarious. He's a dick, but he does it with a smile, right? Yeah, but he don't take any shit. And so this Patrick, I seen his video earlier, and he's asking for help. So all I know is this, is that he had an interview with Rebel News that he had to cancel because he found out that day that they put a gag order on him. And I just heard tonight for the first time that they're trying to get 10 years. So I don't know if that's mischief. I know one cop, like there was some cops in the beginning when they first heard about the convoy that were like going on social media and they're in their uniforms and supporting us. And one girl, she lost 40 hours of pay. Trudeau, his sniper guard, his RCMP police officer sniper used to be really high security detail for Trudeau. He quit his job and over this. And he was speaking out. And there's other people that are involved in this that I can't understand why some people are being held accountable criminally and some are not. I don't really understand that. And some were held without bail. Like one guy, I think they just pick out certain people. And I'm going to say it's probably the one with the best personality, with the biggest reach, with the biggest either social media platform or influencer or something of that nature. And they just are going to make an example out of that person. And, you know, I've seen it a million times in an employment situation where they call it going after the head of the snake, right? They basically do your job for you. So if you go after the biggest mouth, then they'll go around and tell everybody and they're doing your job for you. So you don't have to fire 10 people. You just fire the biggest one and watch everybody fall into place. Well, that's the normal mentality of like a normal person. We're dealing with psychopaths that have narcissistic personality disorders that when they're wrong, they will not admit it. They will fucking double down on you and be like, no, we want the tanks here. Like, you know what I mean? What country turns on itself? Especially Canada, of all places. You know, and this is funny too because, you know, I've seen other countries rise up. And some of them were not so fucking friendly, okay? Like, I mean, where was that? Was it France, I want to say? Or was it... I can't remember. I can't see the comments, by the way, because I'm using this app. That I can't see the comments right now. But, yeah, like, I mean, there was some countries that were not friendly about their protests at all whatsoever. And I worry that our next one, which will be soon, like when you've got good people, like, you know, good people with like really big followings going on Facebook Live saying, you know, you can only push people so far and then somebody's going to snap. Well, I mean, that's where we're at. That is the point where we're at. And, you know, instead of giving us any sort of reprieval or whatever, they did for the summer, they dropped the mask mandates and life felt normal. But we all knew in the back of our head that come winter, you know, the common cold and flu just doesn't exist anymore. It vanished, you know. It's no longer a thing in Canada. It's COVID or nothing. And I don't even know how many boosters they have for people right now. I'm afraid to watch those videos. I was forced into taking something that I was not comfortable taking in the beginning with anyways for my own personal reasons because it was so new and I was worried about the side effects and I was worried about, you know, what it would do long term because we don't have that data. But I also knew that I was a single person and if I didn't take this stupid thing that I wasn't going to be able to go to work. So, you know, I also had an employer, the same employer who I've been with for 3 years now. They wouldn't take that I had a mask exemption. You know, he was saying in one of the videos that I watched of his earlier, I think it was the very first one that I played, which was the most recent one. Guys seem to be able to get away with it more, not wearing a mask. I've tried it a couple times. And people, like, I'm telling you, man, they get real fucking, like, nutty about it. Like, don't get in my face, okay? Because, like, it's not going to be a mask you're worried about. Trust me. On that one, sister. Like, back the fuck up. I have seen people, like, assault people in parking lots at, like, grocery stores in, like, the middle of nowhere. Sorry. In the middle of nowhere in a grocery store. They refused to serve him because he wouldn't wear a mask. He went, I don't even remember what it was. It was something, it wasn't even a $5 purchase. He went to the cash register, tried to pay for the purchase. They said no. The manager got involved in everything. The manager chased him out into the parking lot of this grocery store. I don't remember the name of it. It was a small chain one. And actually assaulted this man because he wouldn't wear a mask. And then they tried to say he was stealing because they didn't consider it a legal sale. And it's like, dude, this was $2.50. I gave you $5 fucking dollars. You know, you can't say that I stole this. And even if I did steal this, you're not allowed to put your fucking hands on somebody else anyways. You know, but different rules for different fools, as we have seen. And I just hope that they realize the slippery slope that they are on. Because the world, especially Canada, is watching. And we see the double standard and we see the different rules for different fools. And we see nothing happening. Trust me when I tell you, that's going to backfire on you guys in the worst fucking way. Ever. You're going to see a side of Canadians that you've never seen before. That's all I can say about that. And I'm not speaking for anybody else. I'm only saying what I have heard in speaking with other individuals. Those views are not my own personally. I mean, I am not, you know, a violent type of person. If somebody like attacked me, of course I would defend myself. But it would never be me attacking somebody first. Like that's just not who I am. You know, I try to get along with most people. And if I can't, then I can agree to disagree. But if you're going to get in my face and if you're going to put your hands on me, then you better watch your back because it'll come to you 10 times harder. And I'm strong and I'm fucking nutty. Because I grew up in a city that was, I don't know, it was tough, kind of. And you had to be to survive. Like, I mean, so like in America, like maybe it's Detroit or the Bronx or what it appears like anyways on TV in a movie, because I've never been there myself. I would love to go to New York, but there's just certain areas that are considered more tougher than most. You know what I'm saying? New York seems like one of those places. And I lived in a city where I mean, and it's only gotten worse actually. Yeah, so. Sorry, I needed a drink. So anyways, I think I've tried to tell the story like 3 times now and I keep getting distracted. There's this guy on Facebook that I watch because like I said, there's a few guys on Facebook that I'll watch because for whatever reason, they like that platform. That's where all their followers are and they do their lives on there. And I followed him since the protest, right? And I could see his frustration tonight. And he's usually one of those guys where he is so chill. I don't think I've ever seen him mad. He's always smiling. He's got a kind word for everybody. He is a pragmatic thinker. Like he's a logical person. I don't know. He just seems very laid back. And tonight was the first time that I could see the frustration in his face because of this commission, right? Because like just some of the things that are coming out like are so absolutely insane you wouldn't even believe me. Like it's stupid. Like it's all over YouTube. You can find it anywhere. The craziest one was a fucking lawyer. Here I go again trying to tell the story and I'm getting sidetracked. But yeah, go get your jab. And there's a lawyer who's standing up, cross-examining someone, goes to take a sip of his water and then just drops to the floor. Like I said, I hope we didn't just watch somebody die. But they're not updating anybody about his medical status. So like, and he hasn't been back. So I don't know what is happening. But he had it all over his Twitter. Oh, I got the booster. Oh, my family, blah, 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 blah. Well, all of those tweets are gone. And you know how, Twitter works, like screenshots for days. So everyone's like, well, why did you take this tweet down? And why did someone take this tweet off your account? Like, aren't you happy that you got boosted? Or did you find out that you got myocarditis now? Or maybe did you perhaps not make it out of the hospital, God forbid. But you know, and that was on live TV. And so, of course, they, cut the camera. And then they go on like this 3 hour break or whatever. And they come back on to start the proceedings again. And not once that day or since have they mentioned one fucking word about this guy. So, like, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like, what is wrong with these people? Like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. But, so, anyways, again, I'll try this story one more time. And if I can't get it out, then it's just not meant to be said. But Ron Clark, I was watching his live from earlier. And like I said, I could see it in his face that he is just where I was kind of a couple weeks ago, where it's just like, you just don't really see a way forward. Like, I mean, and any way that you do see is not good. Okay. And you just feel kind of hopeless, and you feel like it's all for nothing. And it's like, are other people crazy because they don't see what's coming? Or am I the crazy one because I do see what's coming and I can't stop it? And that's where, like, my stress is coming from, because, like, I'm one of those people that want to fix it. If I see something wrong, if I can help fix it, if I can fix it, if it's something within my power to do, or if it's not mine, if I know someone that can, like, that's my personality. It always has been, right from the time I was little. I guess I get that from my mother, but, and, what I see coming is extremely scary. Uncharted territories, for sure. And it's just like, I don't know. Like, there's so much more that's coming down the pipe, you guys. Like, it's absolute insanity. I don't know if they're talking about this big time in America or whatever country you happen to be from, but they're keeping it really on the down low here. And that makes me even more suspicious, because there is a shortage of diesel right now. Okay. By December, we are not going to have diesel. They are already in their red reserves. Okay. They knew this a couple months back when they started decreasing their output of commodities that we need. So they knew this. They have no plan in place. Now think it through. If there's no diesel, there's no trucks. If there's no trucks, there's no food. Okay. They are also, while this commission is going on, they're pushing all these things through without people noticing, because they know that everybody's paying attention to over here. And, it's a diversion tactic. It's actually good PR, if I'm honest. But it's very sneaky. But, they're triple carbon taxing our home heating. So we pay a triple tax. In Ontario, our tax is 13%. So that is now 39% tax on your home. Now they consider heating your home a luxury. They now consider you having a roof over your head a luxury. And I'm not kidding you guys. Like, there's so much stuff I could tell you that, like, people would wonder how I'm even still functioning because of everything that I've been, like, I'm the type of person who will struggle in fucking silence and not say a word, you know what I mean? I don't know why. I don't know if it's pride. I don't know if it's that I feel embarrassed. I don't know if it's that I feel vulnerable by telling people. I don't know what it is. But I'm a single person. I make what at one time used to be considered above average money. And I'm now in a position where we have a 40-year high inflation. And it's because of the reckless spending of our government, and then the central banks, because they can and they want to and they're rich, are going back and forth with the federal government being like, fuck you, like, we're going to raise the taxes. So they keep doing this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Who's suffering? The people. Well, you know what that has resulted in? By them raising, mortgage rates by a percentage and, 0.5% here, 7 or 0.75% there, a full percentage here. And the inflation, it's costing people an extra $1,000 a month for their fucking houses. I'm a single person, you guys. I don't get any money from the government at all. I don't have kids, so I don't get like a baby bonus or any sort of, some people under a certain tax bracket get like a tax refund or some sort of, I don't know what they even call it. Here they call it a GST because that's what it's a tax rebate of your own damn money. I don't get that. And like, I don't even want to tell you guys how close I am to not being able to afford this place. And I've been struggling for a long time. I had a roommate who was my brother. Huh. We took this place together. And it's one of those places where it's like, it was a house that was converted into an apartment. And it wasn't done professionally. It was really done actually kind of shitty. If I showed you guys, you'd be like, oh my God. But it worked for me and my brother. But to get somebody in here as a roommate, I would either have to rent out the small room, which I've tried to do for like super less money than the rent, half the rent. But then you're talking about like a welfare kind of person. And not that I don't, like, I'm already scared about living with somebody anyways because I don't trust anybody. But I don't want someone coming in here who's addicted to drugs or stealing or whatever. I don't know them. You know, they don't know me from Adam. Like, I mean, you have to trust somebody at some point, you know, especially if you're living with them. And it's like, oh my God, you know, like, and that didn't work out. So like, I just couldn't find the right person, or I would get weird vibes from somebody, or their situation just sounded too sketchy for me. And I always go with my gut. And then I thought, okay, well, you know, maybe I'll put like walls up in the living room, because the living room is massive. You can make like a bedroom in there and still have a massive living room. And then I'm like, well, why am I going to do that? All I'm going to do is increase the value of his house. The landlord won't pay for shit. He's the cheapest motherfucker I've ever seen in my life. And you know, it's really tough. And so I've looked at all of my options. I have looked at getting a roommate here. I've looked at being a roommate at someone else's house at their mercy, which I'm not comfortable with. And then I've looked at, you know, moving out of this city altogether, moving, because I commute to work, so I thought of moving there, but it's actually even more expensive now for places. It's like I'm in a bad spot. And put it this way, all I'll say is this. In March, they're expanding a program called MAID, Medical Assistance in Dying. And people are applying for that because they can't afford to live life. You can't afford to fill up your gas tank to go to work, to pay the extra taxes that they're going to start taking off your check in January. Nobody can afford food. Like, you can't afford your utilities now. I just turned my heat on 2 days ago because, like, finally I was like, I'm freezing. Like, I need to turn my heat on. But, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I don't know. And it's going to get so much worse, not better. And I don't see any solutions. So it's like, I don't know. I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I don't know what to do. I just got to make sure Dakota has a home and, you know, he's taken care of. And I don't know. A couple months ago, you know, when I was off work waiting for surgery, not in a good place mentally, I guess you could say. Just kind of emotionally exhausted, sort of fed up and feeling a little hopeless. I considered the maid option, to be honest with you. And not only did I consider it, but like I told everybody I fucking know that I'm doing this. Like my family, everybody. Because I didn't want it to be a surprise to them. I think the worst thing about, you know, when somebody decides to end their life is the shock. I was with a man for 5 years. And I knew he was going to do it. I was on suicide watch with him for like 2 years prior. But when he did it, it was still a shock. So I thought, well, if I tell everybody, but then that doesn't help either because he told me for 2 years prior and it didn't stop, you know, it didn't lessen the shock. It didn't help anything, you know, and all I'm going to do is pass my pain to everybody else. So then it's like, you know, back to, I got to put everybody else before me. Like, you know, when is it my turn to, I don't know. I don't fucking know, man. And then everywhere you look, it's just bad news. So it's like, you know, what the fuck? Like, I mean, they're not, the government is definitely not our friends. They're not out to help us. You know, they have screwed us in every single possible way they can. And when you do that to somebody, like, eventually they're going to come out swinging. I'm sorry, but it's a human reaction. A person can only take so much. And we are talking like a year and a half ago too much. Like, I mean, people are beyond their limits. And when I even see it in a guy like Ron, who's not a firecracker like me, he's very chill, he's very easygoing, he's very even keeled. And when he's even saying the same thing, it's like, okay, yeah, something's not right here. And he's like, well, we need to do something. And it's like, what can we do, Ron? Honestly, because if you've got a plan, let me know what it is. Because like, we're not violent people. They're trying to get everyone's firearms back. We have no, like, you can't take a knife to a gunfight, right? Like, metaphorically speaking, even if we were like Americans and use guns and stuff like that, you're not going to beat a tank. Like, I mean, they've already declared war on us, and they're about to do it again with the food supply. This is a different type of war than what we're seeing. And get this crap, I'm sorry if this offends anybody, but this is the way that I see it, is like this Russia-Ukraine thing. It's a money laundering scheme. They're sending all this money over to these countries when we are suffering here. And they are not doing anything about it. And there is so many fucking homeless people in this city. Like, it's so sad to see. Like, my dad, I seen him today and he was talking about it. And I'm like, Dad, it's only going to get worse. Like, and I said, and they bus people in from other cities and just drop them off here, like near the casino, behind the casino, and say, best of luck to you. Like, I don't know. I think cattle get treated better than human beings do these days. Like, it's just a world I don't even recognize anymore. Like, I don't know what the answer is, but I wish I had one, and I wish I could see comments, because I can't on this. And, yeah, I don't know what the solution is. We all feel the same way. I think it's only going to take one person to step up, and I think literally millions will follow. Millions. Like, they think we shut a province down last time. Wait till they see a whole country shut down. Because people that before, a year ago, thought that we were fucked, now are like, you know what? I'm sorry, you were right. Because they needed to learn it for themselves, and I totally respect that, and I get that. I'm the same way. You need to see it for yourself. You need to live it. You need to learn it. That's when it means the most to you. And like I said before, I'm not here to try and change anybody's mind. Like, I mean, I'm all for independent thinking and do your own research and, question everything and everybody. Like, when someone does something nice for me, I'm like, why? You know what I mean? Like, or a guy asks me out or something, and I'm like, why? Like, my ex, Rich, he texted me the other day. I'm like, what the fuck, Rich? Why? What do you want? Like, why? He's like, well, we should go out. And I'm like, why? What good's that gonna do? Like, fuck, crazy. I don't know. I can't be bothered anymore for, like, shallow fake shit. Like, I just don't have it in me. Like, I mean, if I'm gonna exert my energy into something, it's gonna be something worthwhile. And right now, I would not trust anybody enough to even attempt. No way. Definitely no. But, yeah, I don't know. Like, I have no idea what the answers are. I think conversations need to be had. Like, people need to really get honest with themselves and with each other. And I think you all need to, well, I know I'm speaking for myself and my family and my friends. Like, we need to figure out what is best for our own individual situation. And basically how you want to go out, kind of thing. Like, are you going out with a bang, or are you going out on your knees? I don't know. What the fuck? What are you gonna do, And maybe that's why some of us have been so upset for so long, is because we've seen this coming and we don't want this. And that's why a lot of us went to Ottawa in January and February. It was a cry for help. All we wanted to do was be heard. And we got put down, verbally accosted, physically accosted by the police, for fuck's sakes. If I showed you the G20 summit, oh my God, I'm going to show you, because this was insanity. And if there was ever a time that the Emergency Act should have been called, it was during this. And it wasn't. And why it was, for Ontario, Or for Ottawa, I mean. Summit. Wait a sec. Oh, no, wait, it was on YouTube. Hang on. G20. Yeah, here it is. Oh my god, you guys. You won't even fucking believe this.
This is Jackson Brosco near King and Bay. There is a police car on fire, what appears to be in the middle of the intersection right now. I'm looking at about 50 riot squad police marching down the middle of the street towards that action. But the burning car is in the middle of the intersection at King and Bay, casting a pall of thick black smoke through the middle of the intersection. It's really an ominous scene. We're also hearing what I believe is tear gas being fired back and forth between the two sides. We're continually being pushed back. I'm halfway between Bay and York at this point. We'll report as developments warrant.
Touch my guy. Don't touch my guy. Don't touch my guy. Is this tear gas that we're smelling?
Hi, Alex Pearson reporting here from Adelaide and Bay Street. And if I sound out of breath and like I'm quivering, because I am. It's gotten extremely violent down here. We've got protest groups that are not just protesting. They are throwing bottles. They are throwing pool balls. They are breaking windows. They are coming after the media. They are going after cop cars. They are breaking windows, and they are hell-bent.
This was the G20 summit 10 years ago when all of the world leaders met in Toronto. And it was fucking crazy. Like, there's another video I'll show you after this one. And they didn't call the Emergencies Act for this.
And causing as much harm and destruction. They're now near the zone, as close as they possibly can, near the intersection of King and Bay. We're going to try to wade back into it, but I got to be honest, things have really come undone here. We're at McNab here, downtown at Queens and Soho. We are basically being surrounded by police. There was a group of people, protesters and others, who were standing by the cop car that was burning. The cop car surrounded the protesters. We are now running with a group of protesters and just regular Torontonians who came out to watch.
Leslie Roberts is live on the phone in downtown Toronto, where the protests have actually prevented him from leaving our microwave truck. Leslie, what happened?
Microwave truck.
Well, that's the reason why we're on the phone, Carolyn, is because we have basically been surrounded by the riot squad about an hour ago or so. The protesters who had been downtown dispersed, and as they did, they came up, and I'm at the corner now of Queen's Park and College, right in front of the provincial legislature, of course, on the front lawn, the south lawn, if you know the area. And it is a showdown. We have riot police, several thousand of them on one side, and we have, well, some pretty feisty protesters on the other side. We saw a number of some pepper spray that was by the protesters thrown into the crowd. We also saw a couple of police vans that were smashed. They are not taking any chances here. The police had gas masks on. They had their shields in front of them. They were banging them on the street as they moved. Intimidation tactics. The idea is to move the crowd back, disperse them. They don't want them, of course, to get anywhere near the Metro Toronto Convention Center. Okay, I'm just watching in front of me. The crowd has started to run. As you can see, we have our map.
Okay, see what they're doing? They're surrounding them. That's called kettling. They got in shit for that, doing this after the G20 summit. Ironically, they did it again. Go figure, huh? Learn nothing from history, right?
Camera on. That's the only thing we can show you from our microwave truck. Obviously, something has happened just in front of us. And we saw this a couple of times, that when we heard a bang or a thing there, I just see a bottle, a projectile has been thrown at the police. This is about to get nasty. Because the minute this happens, here comes something else. Something else hit the police line. That's when they move in. So that's what is happening right now here.
This is Jackson Brosco outside the Eastern Avenue Detention Center, the temporary holding facility that built those swept up in arrests during the G20. There's a large peaceful protest taking place here. Police have held behind a line of about 150 protesters.
Jesus, they get somebody at close range like that?
Without warning, all of a sudden, two minivans pulled up in front of the group, and police raided the crowd and just grabbed whoever they could, stuffed them into vans.
Yeah, that's what they'll do. Or what they'll do is they got that line, and they'll snatch and grab, and then they'll all huddle in together so you can't see them, like, just fucking beating the shit out of the person behind, right? Like, it's bad.
Whoever they could at the time and drove away. This was without warning. It was completely unprovoked. We saw police literally just drive up at that moment and grab whoever they could near the front line.
We were sitting down with our hands up like this. We were sitting down going, this is a peaceful protest.
We don't want to go in a crowd and hurt anybody. So please do it now. Hands up your heads.
Okay, Hey, it's Alex Pearson here at the corner of Soho and Queen, where we've been now for about the last hour and a half, 2 hours, when 1,000 protesters walked down the street of Queen in a peaceful protest, and then things changed. Climate changed as police moved in and started surrounding them. And where I find myself right now is a unique situation. They started driving back crowds, and thousands of people were basically running down Queen Street, forcing my crew, a team of camera guys, live-eye operators, our security guards, camera editors, to dive into our trucks and our vehicles. Sorry. Get in. So now I'm sitting with 5 people in a live truck, which was the safest place for us to be, where we're now surrounded by about 1,000 tactical officers. We've got mounted unit. We've got, I can't see actually because the windows are now fogged up. So right now we're trying to shoot this from our vehicle.
But this was a good point to show you as well. This is way before I ever even knew politicians existed, because I never cared till this COVID shit. But I don't really know what the deal was. They were protesting. I don't know what. And the only reason why I looked at it is because I was like, holy shit, man. Like, it got real bad. And they didn't do the Emergencies Act. They didn't do to us what they did. This was in Toronto where this happened.
New Black Diamond cheese sauces. So good. You won't want to tell people it's so easy.
Auto Trader is the easiest way to find your next car.
Sorry, you guys.
Refine your search based on your needs with our intuitive filters.
Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Tonight on the Fifth Estate, they were the most unlikely troublemakers.
And one thing I also want to add is in 10 years, or 8 years this video is, but it's the same time. It was 10 years ago. There was integrity in journalism at that point. But since the government has been bailing out our mainstream media and buys them off and pays them off to push out an agenda and a narrative, even the quality of journalism is non-existent. There's no trust. We all seen that in Ottawa.
Oh, I was not an activist. I never attended a political rally in my life.
There were thousands of them, ordinary Canadians on the streets at Toronto's G20, protesting peacefully until the police shut them down.
No doubt. Sounds familiar.
They're dragging me over the concrete, and I'm screaming, trying to get their attention.
Now, the stories you haven't heard.
This trip searched me about 20 hours after they arrested me.
The pictures you haven't seen. The summit from the street. And the people who never dreamed this would happen to them.
I think we did our best.
Huh.
I think
good enough?
This guy's in the same commission again.
Will be for others to judge.
Fucking idiot.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Gillian Findlay. It has been 8 months since the G20, and the iconic images are still with us. Burning police cars, rampaging mobs, the massive security presence that, according to the official story, is all that stood between Canada's largest city and chaos. But that was never the whole story about what happened that weekend in June. And 8 months later, shocking new images continue to emerge, captured on cell phones and minicams by participants who found themselves on the other side of all that G20 order. For some of you, the stories you'll hear tonight will raise questions about what protest means in this country, what the limits to dissent have become. But others will have the same reaction so many have had since those days in June. It's what we call our program tonight. You should have stayed at home.
This is actually really paramount to watch at this point right now. Everyone in any country right now. I'm fucking traumatized by this.
prior to the G20 weekend in Toronto, I was a Canadian dude named Tommy Taylor who grew up in Mississauga with my mom and my dad and my 2 younger brothers.
Tommy Taylor is hardly what you'd call a political animal. Born in the suburbs, the playwright and aspiring director lives in downtown Toronto with his girlfriend.
I was not an activist. I had never attended a political rally in my life. When I heard that the G20 was coming, I'm like, well, I'm going to see what this is about.
I still don't know what it was about.
He didn't have far to look. The first rally of the weekend started right across from his apartment.
This camaraderie or this spirit is just, something that most of my generation see in like stock footage from civil rights protests and stuff like that. And I was like, I can't wait for tomorrow.
On Friday, the world's power brokers weren't even in Toronto. G8 leaders were meeting 2 hours north in cottage country. It wouldn't be until the morning that they joined the rest of the G20 behind that newly constructed security fence. World summits have long been targets for peaceful protesters and violent demonstrators alike. 10,000 police officers were in Toronto from all across the country. And they weren't the only ones arriving.
We were a really big group from Quebec. It was all people from different groups, different universities.
That afternoon, Maryse Poisson was on a bus, part of a convoy making its way from Montreal. She was coming to protest peacefully. The group had arranged to sleep in a gym at the University of Toronto.
It was really interesting to get to know the people that we were going with. I would say the general feeling was really good. There was a lot of energy.
Sorry, guys.
On Saturday, the summit started for real. The rest of the leaders arrived, greeted by Toronto's mayor. Days before, David Miller had encouraged Torontonians not to be intimidated by all that security.
We support people's democratic right to dissent. There are some people at this table who may have been in the odd protest themselves.
In an effort to control the protesters, the police designated Queen's Park, Ontario's legislature, as a so-called free speech zone. And as this eyewitness video shows, by noon, the zone was filling up.
Tell me what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
Dissent had many faces that day, an abundance of causes, and people who were marching for all kinds of reasons.
Actually, I wasn't planning on going. I knew my daughter wanted to go.
John Prine is no one's idea of a rebel. He works for Revenue Canada. He runs a small tree farm on the side, and it was an accident on the farm that cost him his leg. When his daughter said she was going to the summit, John and his...
That's ironic and crazy, actually, because one of the protesters in Ottawa has a missing leg as well. But he's not a Government of Canada employee.
Wife decided to tag along.
We don't see my daughter a lot because she's away at university, so we were going to have like a family weekend together here in Toronto and see the G20 and see Toronto.
More than 10,000 people turned out to march Saturday afternoon. Organized by the Canadian Labour Congress, they were accompanied by hundreds of Toronto police. How did you make out walking with your leg all that distance?
It was a slow walk, so it was fine for me, and I was taking my time. I had 2 walking sticks with me, and no, it wasn't much of a problem at that time.
Did you see much of a police presence at the beginning?
Yes, there was a massive police presence at the beginning. There were police, and it seemed in full riot gear, and I was surprised by that. Right away, they seemed to be so, I guess I would say, aggressive.
As this amateur video shows, aggression was building in some parts of the crowd.
Revolution! We are the solution! Revolution!
As thousands marched peacefully, handfuls of vandals started breaking away and were soon doing their worst.
I gotta be honest, like, this shit, when you're breaking stuff, vandalizing shit, setting cars on fire, no, man, that's not cool. Like, there's protesting and then there's breaking the law. And what we did in Ottawa was just protests. Like, we were just happy to hug and drink and be around people again. Fuck. We didn't break a thing.
Just blocks away at Toronto's police headquarters, Police Chief Bill Blair was watching it all unfold on monitors.
Police Chief Bill Blair. That guy is involved in this commission. But he is like, I don't know if he's like the safety minister or what the hell he is. So he's worked his way up the system. Just remember that while you're watching this. I'm going to remind people of that. Fuck this guy.
Let's go forward. What's up?
And I'm responsible as the chief of police in Toronto for the safety of my city, and I could see that property was being damaged, and I think it was a very significant risk.
A significant risk, but where were his officers? Look at the video. Riot police half a block away who were ordered, the chief says, to fall back and guard the summit site. As the vandals rampaged, mobile police heading in the opposite direction, ordered to stay with the march rather than intervene.
The car might have gas in it,
By the time abandoned cruisers were set on fire, it was apparent that those in command had made a big mistake. Were the police caught flat-footed? Sounds like it.
My strong preference is that we would have been able to respond in a much quicker way.
But the question now, what would police do to regain control? Back at Queen's Park, no one knew about the vandalism. The first of the marchers were starting to trickle back to the free speech zone, and as they had been all day, the curious were still trickling in.
I mean, I'm a fairly cautious person, so I think if there had been any warning or any bad signs, I think I would have left right away.
In all of his 29 years, Dorian Barton has never been to a demonstration. But he and his wife live close to Queen's Park. At 4:30 that afternoon, he wandered over with a friend to have a look.
We talked to a few people, and we got one guy to take our picture and that sort of thing. And like I said, it was very friendly. No one seemed particularly angry or upset or anything.
But even in this photo, you can see the police starting to amass. By 5 o'clock, the mood began to change.
We're trying to protest. They're stopping us from exercising constitutional rights. They're stopping us from exercising constitutional rights.
Having failed to stop the vandals earlier, the police were now on the hunt. Believing the criminals were hiding among the peaceful demonstrators, they moved in. As this eyewitness video makes clear, no one was above suspicion, especially, it seemed, if they were wearing black. Watch here as batons come out. Then the pepper spray.
I'm surrounded. Where can I go? We are peaceful. Where do you want us to go?
You know what? You guys instigate riots.
As all this was happening, Dorian Barton was oblivious. With his back turned to take a picture, he had no idea of the danger he was now in.
And that's when I was hit from the side by an officer with a riot shield. There was really no warning at all. The hit really just came out of nowhere, almost like being hit by a car or something like that.
No, I have to disagree with that. There is warning, and it's about reading the crowd. Because in Ottawa, at first, the cops were great. And you could tell when they got different orders and different cops came in. You could feel the temperature change, everything. They were not friendly with us anymore. It changed dramatically. And you could see it totally.
Photos that only recently came to light document what happened next.
I remember I was definitely hit again at least once more. I'm not sure what with, and definitely stepped on. And after that, that's when I remember I was being dragged. First by my one arm. They dragged me like through the line of police officers to the paddy wagon. They stood me up and tied my arms behind my back. And that's when I became a bit more aware. I could really notice the really intense pain in my shoulder. So I mentioned that to them. Like I said, I thought my shoulder was broken or dislocated. And they just laughed at me and put me in the paddy wagon.
At the same time Dorian Barton was being taken away in the paddy wagon, blocks away, Prime Minister Harper was turning on the charm. Ensconced behind the security fence, the leaders had no way of knowing what was happening on the streets.
Stay together.
No way of knowing what was being done in the name of their protection. Watch again now how undercover police appear seemingly out of nowhere. And continue dragging people out of the crowd. Were there orders that we have to get to?
Not that I'm aware of, and certainly not that I gave. I think there certainly was a change in the police response. We were, up until that point in time, facilitating and managing lawful, peaceful protests. We then had a riot to try to suppress, and criminality we had to prevent. And so the police response changed in response.
But yet they didn't target the ones that lit the cop car on fire, broke the windows, or any of that. They were just randomly grabbing anybody for no rhyme or reason. And that's what they did in Ottawa. And we never had anything broken. Like, just truckers' vehicles by the cops. Go figure. I guess this is where they learned it from.
To the activities that were taking place on the street.
Perhaps, but there was no riot at Queen's Park. By late afternoon, John Prime, here in the green shirt and walking sticks, arrived back at the free speech zone with his daughter, looking for his wife. What they found instead was a police barricade.
By that time, I was tired. My stump was sore from being on it for a few hours, and then somebody gave the order and said, move. And then right away, my daughter jumped up, and I'm still on the ground because it takes me a little longer to get up, and I was off balance. I didn't have my walking sticks in my hands, so I fell back down again, and my daughter's yelling at the police, saying, give him time to give up, give him space, he's got one leg. So they put me in a sitting position, and I had my glasses in my mouth, and then one of the police officers ordered me to walk, and I was like this, and I said, I can't. And then the police officer grabbed my leg, one of them, my prosthetic leg, and he yanked it off. He just ripped it off.
My God,
they were dragging me over the concrete, and I'm screaming, trying to get their attention with my glasses in my mouth. I'm going, ah! As loud as I can, because I wanted to let them know how much it was hurting. So it was so strange that they were doing this. They knew I had a disability. Obviously, they had my leg.
According to witnesses, the arrests went on for more than an hour. Look what happens to the young man holding up his hands in peace. He just disappears. By the end of Saturday...
Did you guys see that? That's what I was talking about. Where they're all in a line, they'll snatch and grab, they'll pound the shit out of you, and they'll all cover each other. What happened here? Like, they tried calling that out in the commission, and they're like, oh, I don't see anything. And it's like, really? Because a room full of 50 people just seen it, but you can't? Okay.
200 291 people were in police custody, including John Prine and Dorian Barton.
Let's go. Let's go.
We're no use to them arresting.
For the first time in the city's history, police fired rubber bullets at a crowd.
Why are you shooting at us?
But there was still so much more to come.
And people started to ask, do you have a warrant? What's going on? And they just told us, shut up.
Well, the cat's out of...
Well, at least they didn't take you fucking 30 kilometers outside the city and minus 40 and just drop you off with no money.
Bad. Scratch and win is bad at Global Pet Foods, and everyone's a winner. You'll positively...
People calling me a coward. They're coming at me 5 to 1. Calm down, you're arresting peaceful protesters for doing nothing.
By the end of the first day of Canada's G20 summit last summer, the arrests were piling up. Detainees, some of whom hadn't even been demonstrating, were being brought by the busload to a specially built detention center in Toronto's East End.
Yeah, and they have those throughout Canada too, I'm told. Quarantine centers, though, maybe.
John Prine, still missing his prosthetic leg, had to be brought in a wheelchair.
But it was a very long building with a line of cages on one side of it. And I was wheeled into one cage at one end of the building. And at first I was in there by myself. Then eventually they bring in somebody else who is also in a wheelchair. He was paralyzed on one side. And he said that he wasn't even part of the protest, that he had just been wheeling past the police vans on his motorized wheelchair when he was arrested.
By now, Dorian Barton's shoulder was swelling badly. He'd told police they'd hurt him, and he wanted help.
They said that they would try to get me medical attention at some point, but it was probably another 4 or 5 hours before I actually saw a medic.
5 hours after you came in and said, I think I might have a broken shoulder?
That's right, yeah.
And were your hands still handcuffed at this point?
Yes, they were, yeah.
By nightfall, the demos were small. People were starting to go home, or at least trying to, in the case of Tommy Taylor and his girlfriend.
Quite frankly, we wanted to get out of there, and every side street looked kind of frightening. We're like, let's stay with people.
But as this video shows, at every turn there was another barricade.
Yeah, look behind us. They're trapping us.
Eventually, Tommy found himself with 200 others stuck in Toronto's hotel district.
We stopped in front of the Novotel, and someone said that there was some dignitaries from some of the G20 countries staying there. But then, as this chanting was happening, a line of riot police showed up on sort of both ends of the street there.
You're going to beg for mercy.
Yeah, don't expect mercy.
As the riot police came in closer, one line of riot police was like, you have to leave, go that way. And you get to the other line, you have to leave, go that way. It's like this insane Orwellian doublespeak at that point, right? It's just like, oh, okay. So you're trapped.
Let us go! Let us go!
This happened to me in Ottawa, you guys, but there was a fucking LRAD machine there. I don't know if you know what an LRAD machine is. It's like a tank. I thought it was a tank at first. But it's it deafens you. It puts out like an audible noise that deafens you, literally.
And all of them about to be arrested, one by one. By now, police reinforcements had arrived in the city, even though the streets were finally emptying out. Having marched most of the day, Quebec's Maryse Poisson spent the evening in a bar and was trying to make her way back to the gym at the university.
We've been stopped twice, searched twice, asked for IDs, and the police was really aggressive. They started to tell us fucking Frenchie, go back to Quebec. They started to insult us, so I really felt depression was going up during the night.
Michael's Black Friday sale is almost over. Get epic deals on decor and more. Hurry, sale ends Sunday.
New Black Diamond cheese sauces. So good. You won't want to tell people it's so easy.
At 8:30, 9 o'clock, we've been waken up by police coming really fast in the gym, yelling at us, don't move, don't move.
Focus down, all right? Stay back. Move back.
It was a rude wake-up call. Although half asleep, a number of students pulled out their cameras and started filming.
You have the right to retain and instruct counsel once you've been processed. Do you understand?
No.
You're arrested for unlawful assembly. And then, that was in English, then a policeman in French came and told us, you're arrested for riot. So then we just said, well, unlawful assembly is not the same than riot. What's going on? And people started to ask, do you have a warrant? What's going on? And they just told us, shut up. And they started to arrest the people that were talking. So the people that were asking questions were arrested really fast, first.
It's really scary, the big gun.
It's terrible. It's scary because it's fucking long-range weaponry.
I didn't thought they would really arrest us until they handcuffed me.
You know what? Another thing to keep in mind is we're Canadians. Like, most people, I don't even own a gun. I've never owned a gun. Like, I've seen a BB gun. But, like, you know, for some people to see this type of environment, it's kind of traumatizing because we've never experienced it.
At 1:00 p.m. So it took 6 hours for them to proceed people because they were coming in with cameras trying to recognize people.
Oh, they had photos and they were trying to see if people matching those photos were in the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. So it took a lot of time, but they didn't find anyone.
Whatever the students were told at the time, police now claim they were acting on intelligence gathered before the summit, that this was a group that had already committed crimes.
You know what intelligence they're using at the commission? Twitter updates. There was multiple protests going on around Canada at the same time. All were resolved before the invocation of the Emergencies Act, and they're trying to tie them all in together. And it's already been stated multiple times that it was not needed. But that message won't be out there loud and clear. Just that, you know, we're back Canadians.
And was planning more. Which would be what? Can you be more specific?
Primarily mischief.
Mischief.
Yep,
mischief. They were going to
damage property.
Toronto's police chief had never seen the video of the raid, so we showed it to him. All that weaponry to prevent mischief? I mean, look at that.
Well, police officers are generally armed, Joanne. And I agree.
They're generally armed, but not with arms like that.
Those are tactical officers, and we usually use tactical officers for conducting entry into a place where there's a reasonable apprehension that violence may occur.
But there was no violence that morning, just 70 university kids in their pajamas who were about to be charged with conspiracy.
June 27th was actually my 27th birthday as well, so it was just this weird coincidence, and so it was strange to be in jail on my birthday.
Unlike many of those who went out to protest that weekend, Toronto carpenter Jason McDonald did worry things could go wrong. So when he and his sister headed out to join the rallies on Sunday, he took his camera along.
You never know what to expect. Neither of us had any idea what it was going to be like. We didn't think it was going to, especially Sunday.
As his video shows, it was protest as usual that afternoon. More police than the day before, but nothing extraordinary happened until the march hit a major intersection 4 blocks away from where the political leaders were meeting.
I'm currently moving.
This doesn't look good. Next thing we knew, people started booing, and we saw that the direction we'd come from was being closed off by cops moving in a big line. They cut us off on the north side, just kind of cut through.
Do you think you're protecting people?
That meant Jason and the 40 others he was with were boxed in, kettled, the police call it, with no way out.
Was there anybody in that group that, in all fairness, you could say looks suspicious or would be somebody that the police might well have wanted to keep an eye on?
No, I don't. Not that I saw. Not by any means. They may have been under the impression that we were troublemakers. I don't know. But once they started closing us in, that's when I started hearing some crying, and I was backing up filming, but I started running out of room.
In this video, you can see Jason backing up right there.
I kind of glanced to the side and put my hands up, and just as I looked forward again, I took a shield right in the face.
As the police line tightened, the G20 summit ended and the parade to the airport began. This intersection was nowhere near the motorcade route, and there was no way these protesters were going anywhere.
And I spun around again just in time to catch a guy that had had his back turned to the line. A couple cops had jumped through the line and just choked him out and dragged him off, and then the group just closed again. At that point, when I saw him get dragged off, I just had a feeling in my gut that I was going to be dragged off as well.
Jason's camera did not record the beating he says he then received from police. He later took these photographs as evidence.
Yeah, I gotta call you back and what's going on there with TV.
By evening, pictures of the kettling had been broadcast on all the TV networks, and police were conceding they may have gone too far.
Not suggesting that we're perfect. These decisions are made as best as we can at the time with the evidence that we have, things that we're facing, and I support our officers that they had the power to do what they did.
But by then, Jason had joined more than 1,100 people in that detention center, including all of those we've introduced you to tonight.
I woke up that morning, Tommy Taylor, dude from Mississauga, directing Shakespeare for high school students, to prisoner 0106 in cell block 006 on the detention center on Eastern Avenue. That was my day.
Toronto's G20 lasted less than 48 hours. More than 1,100 people were detained and brought to a temporary detention center where new demos were soon happening outside. Inside, cameras had been confiscated. Most people were held on something called a breach of peace order, which allows police to detain anyone they think might cause trouble for up to 24 hours, even if they never lay a charge. Breaching the peace is what Tommy Taylor was accused of after getting caught up in that demonstration outside the hotel.
The first thing that every bus in the detention center saw was a row of six cages, 10 by 20, all the doors off the porta potties inside, people shaking the cages, yelling for water, yelling for their lawyers, women trying to block the doors because everyone coming in on the buses was watching them go to the bathroom.
One of those women was Maurice Poisson, still in her pajamas after being roused from her sleep and arrested with 70 others at the university gym.
And it was really, really cold. And it was only concrete. I was with tongs, shorts, and t-shirts. So the first night was just impossible to sleep. Just impossible. We could just stand there and we were just freezing.
At least John Prine could sit down. He had to. They still hadn't returned his prosthetic leg. In fact, they hadn't done anything.
And people were saying they were really thirsty. They were asking for water. We didn't get any food until the morning. The food didn't come probably till 12 hours later.
All Dorian Barton wanted was something to stop the pain in his shoulder. He couldn't even get a Tylenol.
They said they couldn't because they could be liable if I had a bad reaction.
But for many of the young women especially, it was about to get worse.
I remember the first girl they took out of her cages. They handcuffed her to go out, and for about 10, 15 minutes, and she came back. She was shaking, she was crying, and she was yelling to everyone. They're starting to strip search everyone.
Strip search?
Yeah, they were strip searching everyone. I was with 2 officers, 2 females, and I had to take out all my clothes. And then they asked me to put the hands on the ground and to cough. It was really, really humiliating. And at this point, they decided to take my bra because it had a metal things in it. Yeah, so they said it's dangerous for me. Yeah.
But by Sunday afternoon, the real danger was outside, as the detention center became a magnet for people protesting the arrests. When the crowd didn't move quickly enough, tear gas and rubber bullets came out. 10 more were arrested that afternoon. 10 more detainees in a facility that was already overflowing.
When they dropped the 40th prisoner off, and the young Toronto Police Services officer, name tag removed, no badge number, which was very common in there, and there is only one reason you take your name tag off in a situation like that. So he puts the last guy in. He's like, well, how many of you guys are in here? And we're like, there's 40 guys in here. And he says, what do they think this is, Auschwitz? I was just like...
This is what the officer said.
That's what the officer said. What do they think this is, Auschwitz? And I laughed and walked away.
I remember talking to officers a lot, trying to talk with all the officers that were passing by and asking them what was going on, why are we here, what will happen, and telling me I have the rights to see a lawyer, I want to see a lawyer, and different officer just told me, no, your rights are different because it's the martial law now. At least 2 or 3 officers told me it's the martial law.
As for Dorian Barton, after being hit by police and dragged through the streets...
It was never declared as far as I know, but I don't know because, like I said, I wasn't into politics at this time. I don't really know the details of what happened. And the only reason why I looked this up is because we were talking about it one day in the chat. And I was like, I'm going to go back and see, the difference between then and now. And you would hope that over time things would evolve into a better system. But apparently that doesn't happen.
He was eventually taken to a hospital, where he was told that not only his shoulder was dislocated, but his arm had been broken. He was also told that unlike so many others, he would be charged.
What? Obstructing a police officer in the line of his duty and unlawful demonstration.
You were charged with obstructing the police officer?
Yeah. It seemed consistent with the ridiculousness of the situation up to that point. But it kind of made sense that, I felt maybe it was a way for them to cover their backs in terms of having injured me.
Yeah.
Here's what you can expect from Conestoga online courses. Immersive.
By Sunday night, the releases had begun. More than 1,100 people were arrested that weekend. 709 were never charged with anything, just shown the door and warned to stop protesting. John Prine knew his 27-hour ordeal was over when he saw a guard carrying his leg in a plastic bag.
And he said, you know, there's a bus stop over there and you can make your way back. And I said, well, where's my walking sticks? Where's my glasses? Where's my money? You know, all they had was my driver's license and my leg. I said, how is it going to get on the bus and pay for the bus fare? And he said, well, the bus driver should let you on for free. But and I said, well, I won't even be able to see the bus. How am I going to make my way there? And I said, I won't be able to walk there. I said, it's impossible. And so he went back and he talked to the sergeant and he said, well, because of the special circumstances, we'll bring you home in a police cruiser. Okay. So that's what they did.
I'm not an idiot. I'm not stupid. I know that there are worse places in the world. I know there are people that go through such hell to even do half of what I did politically. But it's not okay to just be slightly better than. We have to do our best. And what was happening in the detention center was not our best. I'm not an ungrateful Canadian. I just, being in there, I couldn't feel anything more about how un-Canadian this all was.
Toronto's G20 summit was quite possibly the most photographed event ever held in the city. In addition to hundreds of news crews, 95 police security cameras recorded 22,000 hours of videotape. And then there was all that was captured on camcorders and cell phones. And yet, as recently as 4 months ago, Toronto's police chief was confident that none of it showed any misbehavior on the part of his officers.
I've not yet seen any evidence or any video evidence, any photographic evidence of a police officer using excessive force or exceeding their authority.
Yeah, we heard you say the same thing in the commission, you fucking bozo.
Until that point, I had not.
And today?
There is a number of cases where additional video evidence has been brought forward.
Including some of the video we've shown you tonight. The violence outside the detention center. Jason McDonald's arrest in that kettle. The aggressive way police shut down the free speech zone at Queen's Park.
Where? I'm surrounded. Where can I go?
So here we are. Pepper spray coming out here. People are just sitting on the ground. You can hear people. Where do I go? Now here we're going to see some rubber bullets, or hear some rubber bullets. Was that acceptable to you?
Well, I have to tell you, I look at that and say that matter clearly has to be investigated. It's not clear to me from the video that you just showed me what the...
Yeah, it's not clear. And it needs to be investigated. But you know who investigates them? Themselves. Yeah, SIU, Special Investigations Unit, investigates themselves.
Justification would be for the use of that force, and so the matter needs to be thoroughly investigated. And people are in our business held accountable if they use a force for which they can offer no reasonable justification.
There has to be justification too, protesters say, for the numbers detained. The G20 marked the biggest mass arrest in Canadian history.
I think it was very unfortunate that was necessary to do, or
was it necessary to do?
It's difficult to say in every case, and we're investigating those cases where complaints have been brought forward, and I think there was more than ample evidence that there was a very real threat of an ongoing breach of that peace in the city of Toronto, and we had to try to balance a very difficult set of responsibilities.
Did you get the balance right? 8 months later, can you say you got the balance right?
Well, I think 8 months later, we're still determining whether or not it was absolutely right. I think we did our best. I think.
Is that good enough?
Well, that frankly will be for others to judge.
Maryse Poisson has made her judgment. Like everyone else in the university gym, she was charged, in her case, with conspiracy. 4 months later, the charges were dropped. The police had conducted the raid without a warrant.
That was a massive abuse of the power of police. I mean, that was there was just no democracy here during the G20.
Jason McDonald agrees. He's suing police for what happened to him in that kettle.
Anytime I see a cop now, my stomach twists, because I just instantly wonder, is this one of the guys that dragged me away or stomped people in Queen's Park or whatever? Is this a good cop or a bad cop? That's my initial thought.
The charges that Dorian Barton obstructed police have also been dropped, but he still lives with what police did to him, and he too is suing.
The doctor's original assessment was that my range of motion will probably be, I'm looking at probably 80% once I'm completely healed. So I'm probably not going to get back to 100%.
Has it affected your ability to work?
It has, absolutely, yeah. And I have experience waitering, but that's something I actually just can't do because of my arm.
As for John Prine, he's taken his complaints to Ontario's Human Rights Commission. He also hasn't been able to return to his job at Revenue Canada.
Right now I'm on sick leave. I'm on antidepressants. I'm trying to, I guess, get over it. And it ended up, I'm retiring early from work, earlier than I had wanted to.
So many people said you should have stayed home, and I just don't even know where to begin with what's so infinitely wrong about that statement. You should have stayed home.
As angry as he is at the police, and he is angry, Tommy Taylor is also disappointed at how few Canadians seem to care. And so he's decided to challenge them with a new play. Opening this spring, You Should Have Stayed at Home.
I wasn't an activist before G20, but they've made me an activist now. They've shown me that there are reasons that we all need to use our voice. I guess who I was before is who most of us were before. And I really don't want something like G20 to happen to other people, to make them active, to make them get up off their seats.
8 months after the security fence came down, there are 9 separate investigations into what happened in Toronto that weekend. Of the 320 people charged, 12 pleaded guilty. 86 cases are still before the courts.
Yeah, that's insanity. And I gotta be honest, like, you know, I feel the same way that they do. You know, I hear a lot of people say so-called freedom convoy, and it's like, you know, I've seen you enjoying your freedoms all summer long with no masks and no travel restrictions, and, you know, don't thank anybody for that, you know. But when they find themselves on the wrong side of an issue, and it's more political than really a legal issue, they will ruin you. So, anyways, you guys, I gotta get to bed. I gotta get up at 5 a.m. Thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate it, and I will see